What's up, guys? Welcome back. It's been a long time. I haven't done an episode in a few months, but the other day I was on Dustin Klein's live channel watching the chat, and people started talking about 1x versus 2x and gear range when it comes to riding, and I was like, you know what? I can do a video on that. So here we are. We're doing it from home though. My normal scene's the shop. A little different, mix it up. Let's get it going. So first things first, 1x versus 2x. 1x is simpler. You only have one moving part, less chance of failure, one shift lever, one cable. Life's good, right? Easy. I wouldn't say you can get more range from a 1x versus a 2x. Like most 1xs are limited by the cassette, and the biggest range you'll see is like 520 on a stock cassette, and that's from SRAM. There are companies that make like 9 to 53s and 9 to 52s, and you'll get like 550, 600% range out of those. That's great and all. They don't shift quite as nicely as a factory cassette does. Just, Shimano knows their chains, SRAM knows their chains. They know exactly how to make their ramps and everything. And also the bigger the range over a certain amount of gears limits how small the steps between the gears can get, which is, we'll get to that later with the 2x, but basically the smaller the steps between the gears, the better. Now, that being said, a lot of people don't like front derailleurs because you got two chain rings. It's another place you can drop a chain. Well, perfectly set up derailleurs work 99.9% of the time, especially if you're doing electronic shifting. Those rarely make mistakes. I drop chains on my 2x wireless setup maybe once every 3,000, 4,000 like front shifts, and that's okay with me. I wish it was 0, but can't ask it to be perfect 100% of the time. It's still a machine. It's not 100%. Anyways, back to the video, or back to the 1x. So you have a front chain ring and you have a rear cassette, limited by range there. Everything's good. Benefits that simpler, like I said, less moving parts, just a single front chain ring, so less things to replace. Generally your chain is shorter, or at least your chain control is better because you don't have a lot of areas of two different slack. Like, you drop the front chain ring down 13 to 16 teeth. Your derailleur's got to pick up that slack, so its clutch has got to be strong. But yeah, with the 1x you get really good chain control, good shifting, all of that. The downside is the shifting is slow and sometimes feels clunky. So back to what I was saying about the distance, the size of the cogs is with a 1x, let's just go with 12 speed because it's easy to go. You have 12 jumps between gears and you have a lot of range to go through. A 2x cassette's probably only going to be like a 10 to 36 versus a 10 to 52, so they only have to get 23 teeth in 12 gears. Now a 10 to 52, they've got to get 42 teeth differences in 12 gears. It's a lot. So with that, you don't get as quick shifting in the cassette. It's always quick going down the cassette to a faster gear. It'll be when you're approaching a big hill and you realize you got to shift up, it is not shifting up the cassette, which also means under load, it's not going to be shifting as well. So if you're in the middle of a climb, you kind of got to give yourself like one of those like 2 hard pedal strokes, shift, do like a light pedal stroke to get it up in the gear, and then catch the power again as you are coasting up the hill and kind of losing momentum to keep yourself going. Whereas with the 2x, since it's smaller, you can generally get those shifts quicker. Now those slower shifts can cause bent teeth if you're shifting under load because there's a lot more leverage. Those cogs, they're skinny pieces of metal, and the longer they are or the wider they are from their center point, the chances of bending or deflecting is higher, so you might not get the best shifts. But yeah, that's like really the only downside to a 2x, to a 1x. Other than that, it's great. Simple, easy. Definitely for mountain biking, it's great. Get a small front chain ring, Don't have to worry about different chain forces acting on the suspension with 2 different chain rings. You can kind of tune it for like a 32, 34 tooth chain ring. That's the majority of the people using the bikes are using. So you're set, easy, life's good. Onto the 2x though. It's currently my personal favorite. You can get a much larger gear range. I think one of the best I've seen is it requires aftermarket cassettes and stuff, and you're pushing recommended maximum teeth a little bit, just like 2 teeth, which isn't the worst in the end of the world. Sometimes that might not work out because the small front chainring, the small cog in the rear might be too much of a difference for your derailleur, and so you just know not to cross chain, which most of us aren't doing. So it's totally fine, and you kind of just know what gears don't work well. Or you run it with a tight chain and just know you can't go big, which is also cross training. You should never do it. So yeah, back to the 2x is my favorite benefit to a 2x, and I until last year was like 1x only. I was racing mountain bikes during the like 1x conversion era when downhill bikes stopped being the exclusive users of 1x drivetrains, and I didn't want to look back to a front derailleur. I thought it was stupid. I never wanted it. Well, now I'm back and I love it, and I'm probably gonna run a double on any road or gravel bike that I have until the end of time. If you live in an area that has like a lot of rolling hills or like steep descent, like mountain areas where you know it's gonna be a good, fun, hard descent and then quickly shoot back up into a climb, a 2x is great because you can stay in just the middle of your cassette and shift a lot between the front chainring, and you have like a climbing gear and a fast gear all in one shift. To accomplish that same changing gear on a 1x would be having to do a couple shifts, maybe up to 4, and that's a lot slower and a lot more stressful on your gears and everything else. The other benefit too is, like the con on the 1x is your cassette's a lot smaller. It shifts super quick, whether you're going up or down in the rear. So just anytime you need to micro adjust your cadence, you realize you're spinning a little bit faster than you want to, or you want to put a little bit more power down, it's just quick, it's there, you're done. Easy, none of the like clunking or feeling, and they're also smaller adjustments. So if you're the type of rider that likes to keep your cadence in a like really tight zone, you'll be able to find more gears that will keep you in that zone for the amount of power you want to put down. So if you're a rider that's, you know, cadence and power meter based, there's really no reason to want to run a 1x, and you should only run a 2x. Back to range, you can get about 630% range out of a 2x in a like moderate to high end setup. You can use like a subcompact front chainring and get a really good climbing gear, a 30 to like 36 generally, and that's what I run on my climbing gear, and it's great. Can get me up any hill, and I'm like not the best climber. And then also you can still have a fast gear. There's a Shimano 11 speed with a Leonardo Racing cassette. If you use like a mix of a GRX rear derailleur and like a 105 or Ultegra or Derailleurs front, and whatever 2x shifters you want to use, you can push the GRX a little bit past its 34 tooth limit. You could probably do this with Ultegra RX as well, into a 36 tooth cassette. Leonardo Racing makes a 9 through 36. And then if you run that with a subcompact front, like a 30-46, if you're running SRAM, you would have to run a 30-43 because their tooths don't jump as much, or their derailleurs can't jump as many teeth. But you have pretty much like the slow gear of a 1x with a mullet setup, with the mountain bike rear derailleur. And then you also have a fast gear, like somebody riding a standard compact crankset on a road bike. So you really get the best of both worlds. You can be really fast and really slow at the same time, and who doesn't like to have all the options possible? Now to the cons of a 2x is you have more moving parts. Front derailleurs can be very finicky. Some work out great, some just aren't. It all depends on how they were originally set up. I have found that every Shimano 2x front derailleur of their new style is never set up properly with cable tension from the factory, and so it's going to require, to get all the 4 trim positions or the 4 positions of the shifter, you're going to have to completely reset it up. Shimano has like a very technical guide. You have to like put it in the lower trim, set cable tension, make sure something's aligned, and then put it in the upper trim, and then set like 2 different limit screws that way based off different trim positions. I read the instructions every time I set them up. Like I'm a mechanic by trade, that's my job, so I'm reading it every time I set it up. I don't know anybody who knows the process 100% off the top of their head. And I've just found going through step by step on the instructions guarantees me the best setup every single time. And I don't want to have to fix it if it's not perfect. So yeah, we have all that. With that said, set up right, they work great. But it's still another moving part. It's another cable that could potentially break. It's another section of housing that has to be replaced. It's another derailleur that might have to get adjusted by a mechanic if it's not working well. Another thing to get bent if your bike falls over. You know, plenty of things that aren't great, but like on most people that are riding them on road bikes or like gravel race bikes, they're not really like falling over. It's not like they're doing like gravel touring or adventure riding or mountain biking where they're falling a lot. You know, these guys are riding on pretty smooth roads for the most part, and, you know, riding at least semi-cautiously when it comes to taking risks that could take out derailleurs and cassettes and stuff and everything. Now, another con is you can cross chain, so you can potentially put more stress on your chain. Yeah, you're still cross chaining a little bit in a 1x, but it's not as bad as you can possibly do it. If you know how to shift and you know how to keep yourself out of cross chaining, you have no problem with it. It's not a con at all, but for some people, they can do that. You have to adjust your trim as you shift to the rear of your cassette, which bugs some people. If you run electronic shifting, it generally does it for you, so you don't have to worry about that too much. But yeah, that's really the only 2 cons. Extra parts and more things to break. But yeah, other than that, that's it. If you guys have any more questions about 1x versus 2x, drop a comment below. If you haven't already, please like my video, subscribe, maybe watch my other ones. My Avis Game Changer video is doing great. Apparently you guys aren't huge fans of the other ones, but hey, still up there when you need it. So yeah, have a good one and enjoy the ride.